Good afternoon and welcome to Solent Sport News. I'm Stanley Ifekuche. The FA is investigating after Manchester United player was hit by an object. Anthony Elanga had something thrown from the stands when celebrating his side's third goal against Leeds United. Manager Ralph Rangnick was happy that Elanga went on to score the fourth goal, but was against missiles being thrown at players. There was controversy in that game when Leeds United Robin Koch suffered a concussion. He was cleared to play but needed to be substituted 30 minutes later. The PFA is calling for concussion substitutes to be brought into the game. We can cross live now to Rebecca Cox, who is a sports therapy technician at Solent University. Hello, Rebecca. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Glad to have you with us. So I don't know if you noticed, but at the weekend, a player was down. He had a head injury. He was subbed off. No, he wasn't subbed off, though. He was brought off for checks, but after a couple minutes, he was brought on. That was the sign that he was cleared to play, but he didn't have enough minutes to check. Then 30 minutes later, he was subbed off because he couldn't see properly. So I just wanted to ask, because you are in the field and you know what it's about, what is concussion about generally, to start?
So concussion is a mild traumatic brain injury, but it can present in a number of symptoms. So two people could have the same sort of impact, but you both present differently with that. It's a very individualized case of how it affects you. The common symptoms are headaches, blurred vision, nausea, sickness, obviously pain, and it can be brought on very abruptly through a kick to the head or impact to the head, or it might even come on later on that evening. It's called secondary concussion syndrome. And that can come on within 24 hours.
Okay. How dangerous is this, the concussion itself?
It can be very dangerous. It can be a sign of kind of a further traumatic brain injury, so a bleed on the brain, or it can just be a mild, what we call almost just an impact and a bruise on the brain.
Okay, so some people have asked for temporary substitutions to be made for there to be enough time to check on whoever has suffered or is at risk of suffering concussion during a game, since the FA does not want to introduce extra substitution. So what do you think about temporary subs to allow players with a lot more time for checks?
I'm for this argument. I think it's a good use of being able to take the player off the pitch and assess them in the medical room. I think the assessment's more thorough, which will allow for a better assessment, and you will reduce the sensory impact on the player, and as a therapist as well, being on the pitch, it can allow you to develop more of a rational decision because you're having less of the impact from the crowd or the other players or the manager watching over you. Okay,
so lastly, is it true that when you develop more neck muscles, you reduce the chances of having concussion?
There is some evidence of that in especially rugby and motorsport. They work quite hard to train the muscles in the neck to support the skull. So the brain sits in the skull almost like something within a jar. So the skull is the jar and the brain is something in that skull, and it rattles around in there. So if you can stabilize your skull more with the neck strengthening, it will help to just kind of reduce that impact.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. With that said, Adama Traore should never have a concussion. Southampton's footballers returned to training today, looking to build on their incredible Premier League run. Saints have only lost once in 11 games, and that's after matches against Spurs, Manchester United, and City. On Saturday, they beat Everton 2-0, which put them into the top half of the table, above Leicester. Team Great Britain won their only gold medal in the women's curling in this year's Winter Olympics. If Murray Head's team led 4-1 following the fifth end after the Japanese skipper missed an attempted takeout and gave Muirhead a steal of 1. Team GB's 10-3 victory is the joint biggest winning margin in a final since the sport was reintroduced in 1998.
It's a moment that we're going to remember forever, and it's been very hard work getting here, but to finish it off and to be standing on the very top of the podium on the last day of the Olympics is fantastic.
A big money Super League for the world's best golfers is dead in the water. That's the view of 4-time major winner Rory McIlroy, who's against the plans. The Saudi Super League is backed by legend Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson. Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau distanced themselves from the project last night. Well, in the last hour, our reporter Ella Brown has spoken exclusively to last year's British Masters winner Richard Bland. The Southampton golfer is against the planned Super League.
I think this sort of Saudi sort of Super League has been sort of bubbling for a couple of years now, and Rory has always been kind of like the first of the top players to sort of say, look, he's not interested. It's just it's a money grab for the top players, which, you know, some of the figures that they're banding around are crazy. And Rory's never wanted any part of that, and I truly believe that this league almost doesn't work without Rory. I think he is the main attraction, and now you've just had DJ, who was pretty much, everyone thought that he was going to be signed up, has said no, and from what we were hearing, Bryson was going to be like the face of the Saudi league, and now he's just sort of said no, he's committing to the PGA Tour. So, and I was just reading at lunch today that Rory's come out and sort of said that he thinks it's dead in the water, which right now it looks that way. And I'm pleased that the top players have gone, you know, down the road that they have and supporting their tour.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you were saying about the top players, which are the ones which would be invited to it. If it did happen, what would happen to those which weren't invited or like part of the whole Super League?
Well, I think, I think the money that they're offering, to the younger lads, they're going to earn an absolute fortune in their career anyway, because it's not like they're playing for peanuts on the PGA Tour. They're playing for minimum probably $8 million every single week. The likes of the Lee Westwoods, the Ian Poulters, the Henrik Stensons, and when they're kind of being offered $30-40 million, and they're coming towards probably the latter end of their career, that's tough to turn down. So I can see it from their point of view. If I was offered that kind of money, of course, at 49 years old, I would be, people would if I was offered, I wouldn't be offered anywhere near what they were offered. But if I was offered a few $1 million, I'd be almost crazy not to turn it down, because that's almost like my security for the rest of my life.
At the Betfred British Masters, that you obviously came out to win, and then you went and had the knee operation in November, and then went and got COVID. But then this year you came back from all of that, and then you still managed to come second in the Dubai tour. Like, what is the reason for this, and how do you stand now and your future going forward?
With the preparation that I had going into those first two events, with I knew I had to have the knee operation. That was fine, but then I picked up a rib injury at the start of the new year as well, which I kind of wasn't expecting to come out the blocks that quickly. Obviously, you're hoping for it, but my expectations were probably a little bit lower. So I was really chuffed to bits with it, and obviously it's really helped my world ranking position. I'm hoping now that it's going to open a few doors into maybe the World Golf Championship match play event in about a month's time in Texas. And if I can play well there, then there's still the chance of getting in the Masters. I'm certainly not going to be taking my eye off the ball in any stretch. I'm going to be working even harder and trying even harder to, make these things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. You've been lovely.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Our reporter, Holden Daly, is currently live from the Aggies Ball in Southampton after Hampshire County Cricket Club signed Australian batsman cricketer Ben McDermott. Holden, what's the atmosphere at the former Rose Bowl?
Stanley, the sun is out. Fans are in a fantastic emotion right now as the batsman did sign with Hampshire Cricket recently. With the batsman, he's very impressive in T20 play. Just last year, he had 2 back-to-back centuries in his play, so he's a fantastic addition to this Hampshire cricket team in the Validity Blast play, and the cricket team is really looking forward to his play this summer.
And you were able to speak with the press editor, Ben Wakeford, about the new signing, correct?
Yeah, I was able to speak to Mr. Wakeford. He was the one that actually released the press release of the signing of the player. Take a watch now what he had to say about Ben McDermott.
And finally, this will be McDermott's first.
As well, hopefully having a good partnership with him at the top of the order, and hopefully taking a bit of pressure off some of the guys lower down who can just come in and free their arms and clear the ropes.
And finally, this will be McDermott's first time not playing for an Aussie cricket club. How excited is he to play for an English team?
Yeah, McDermott was so excited he actually reached out to the fans on Hampshire Cricket's Twitter and Instagram, just saying a personal message how excited he is to show his bats off this summer with this play. So he's very excited to go international, because the only other time, like you said before, he's went international was international T20s representing his nation of Australia. So he's looking really forward to it, Stanley.
Thank you, Holden. As we go back to the news stories. So in boxing, Amir Khan and Kell Brook settled their long-term grudge when they fought in Manchester on Saturday. Amir was saved by the referee, who determined the 35-year-old had endured enough beating. At the post-match presser, a bruised Khan was left hinting at retirement.
You know, no excuses, the better man won. He boxed out of his skin, man, honestly, I have to say. I never expected that from him. I've seen him fight before, and he put in a great performance today.
So, is that the final time that we'll be seeing you in the ring?
I sit down with my family. I think it could be. It could be.
That's all we have in today's news bulletin. See you again next week. Goodbye.